Hey, I welcome you very warmly to another reading on the channel. I am, of course, Dawid, and today we'll look at a message from the man you're thinking about, from the person you're thinking about, if there are still any men here, because sometimes they do show up, some stragglers, so to speak. In any case, the energy, of course, is, it can be reversed, so if some man is listening to this and wants to find out about a woman, then of course it works too. So we'll see what message from this person you have to receive today. We'll see what this person wants to tell you. So think about this relationship. Think about this person. Of course, this doesn't have to be any romantic relationship or anything like that. Rather just a relationship that's in your life that, well, at this moment might have something to tell you. So if you're coming across this film, it means that there's something here for you. So it's worth listening. Of course, I encourage you to listen to the end, because sometimes someone leaves too quickly and thinks, oh my, some bad news. And then it turns out that at the end there's some reversal. So I recommend listening to the end, because of course in tarot you never know anything, and sometimes it happens that something bad is forming, and suddenly at the end it comes out why it is so, and maybe it's not so bad after all. So here I encourage you to listen, and only then draw some conclusions and use it in life somewhere. So, well, I invite you to this reading. I think it'll be good. So let's see what shows up here and how we can read it. We're starting with the High Priestess. So quite a strong card to start. Quite a serious one, I'd say. So this guy of yours, this person you're thinking about, starts with a bang. I'll tell you that, well, this is not just anything. This card tells me that this man is sitting now, and well, he himself doesn't fully know what he wants to tell you. So this is a classic, right? So that means he has a whole sea of feelings, thoughts inside him, maybe even such deeper reflections about you, but it's all still so foggy, as if he were looking at something through mist or through a steamed up window after a hot shower. He knows he feels something, he knows something is there, but if someone grabbed him by the collar right now and said, "Speak up, what's the deal with this woman?" Well, he'd probably start, stammering or changing the subject to the weather and saying that the sun is shining nicely today. The High Priestess is a card of intuition and secrets. So the first message from him goes something like this: there's something in you that I can't fully figure out, and it fascinates me. So notice let's say, he's observing you, analyzing, trying to understand, not in some, stalkerish or a creepy way. Don't worry, that's not what this is about yet. I hope that's not what it will be about later either, but at this moment it's definitely not. More in a way that you're a certain puzzle to him and he ponders over this puzzle, maybe while eating breakfast, maybe before bed, maybe before a shower. His mind just wanders in your direction and he doesn't always know why himself. And what the priestess is also whispering to me here is that he has a tendency to keep things inside himself. He's not the type who, jumps out with the text, "I have to tell you something," and, says it right away. That's not this type. He'd rather wait, think it over 300 times, and then think it over one more time, the 301st time. And then maybe if the stars align properly, he'll say or write something. Well, but he'll give a meaningful look, as if he'll be counting on you to figure it out yourself, because it was obvious after all. Well, that's men very, very often. This is actually talked about often, more and more, I think, that men have problems with this. But you know what? What's beautiful about this is that this card at the very beginning of the spread also says that between you, there's some kind of invisible connection, something intuitive, maybe even a bit spiritual. And he feels it, even if he can't name it. Like you understand each other without words, or at least you have that potential. And that's exactly what this first subconscious message is. I feel there's something more between us, but he also can't say it out loud. So like a silent poet, right? Laughter. But of course, to be an admired poet and so on, well, text in a drawer isn't enough. You also have to publish it somewhere, and so on. So let's hope that this will somehow change here, and this message from this kind of hidden, somewhat unspoken message will turn into something more like a spoken message. And that's a bit what the Fool is about. The Fool. Look, this card is like a subconscious message from him, in the style of, "You remind me of something completely new, of some adventure, of fresh air, Because the fool is generally that guy standing on the edge of a cliff with a backpack, maybe with a little dog at his feet and a smile as if he just won the lottery, not as if he's about to fall off a cliff. So he's not thinking about the abyss, he's thinking about what's beyond it. So your man somewhere there in his subconscious corners, when he thinks about you, feels exactly something like this, that he could jump into something new with you, that you're like a breath of fresh air for him, a possibility of change, maybe even a certain risk, but an exciting one, not a scary one, and now attention, because this is interesting. After the High Priestess, where he sat and pondered, analyzed, reflected like a typical over-intellectualized guy, suddenly the fool pops up shouting, maybe screw all this thinking and just jump. So this means there's an internal conflict inside him, right? On one hand, there's this serious, thoughtful part that says, wait, think it over, don't rush. And on the other hand, there's this fool who tugs at his sleeve and says, come on, what's the worst that could happen? It'll be fun, let's go. It's a bit like having an angel and a devil on his shoulders, except neither of them is evil. One is just cautious and the other wants to have some bigger fun. Exactly, and that's interesting. What I also see here is that around you he feels younger. Not in the sense that you're rejuvenating him with creams, but in an energetic sense, right? So around you, or when he thinks about you, this boyish enthusiasm awakens in him. It's a bit silly. Silly, funny, because we can also perceive it this way, that around you he goes a bit crazy, acts foolish, becomes a child, and because of that you might perceive him as, childish, let's say, or like with a monkey mind, right? And that's kind of, well, let's say average. But on the other hand, he perceives it as something cool, like it's nice, because he also perceives it as your energy having an effect on him while simply relaxing him, right? Because then he can actually feel like that child and get a bit of that monkey mind quite safely with someone who will more or less understand him. Although the question is, how do you perceive this in the long run? He might decide that no, seeming like such a guy, it's too late for me, but in this case, damn, it's probably something cool for him, so maybe he can use it better somehow. But obviously on the other hand, if he's like super fun, great, but you also need to have some foundations, fundamentals for something more to potentially come out of it. So I absolutely agree with that somewhere. And you also have to take into account that we're not children anymore. Yes, at least that's what I think. And also, just as an interesting tidbit about channel statistics, this channel is mainly watched by older people, so I don't have any younger viewers here. That's interesting. So if you're younger, or at least consider yourself younger, you're in some small group, because according to YouTube, according to the statistics here, it's mostly mature people, so yeah, quite interesting here. We have the Tower in the 3rd position, and this is somewhat interesting news because from the High Priestess to the Fool, and from the Fool straight into the Tower, so your man, well, he has a real action movie going on in his head. This isn't a romantic comedy, but action James Bond. But don't worry, because the Tower sounds terrible, but of course it's not terrible at all. It's not, at least not in this context, right? Because obviously it depends on what you're reading, but the Tower is a card that, as a subconscious message from him, says something like, you shattered a certain worldview for me, and I'm still recovering from it, because the Tower is exactly that kind of naked revelation, crash, lightning from a clear sky. The moment when everything a person has arranged in their head suddenly goes head over heels, and not necessarily in a bad sense. Of course, sometimes a person builds themselves a little tower of beliefs like, I already know what my life looks like, I'm not going to fall in love with anyone anymore, I have everything figured out. And then someone like you comes along and suddenly, boom, the whole construction is in ruins, and he stands there looking with his mouth open as all those bricks simply fall down. And this is such a, damn, I'd say funny, exactly a funny situation in which he probably looks normal on the outside, walks around, eats breakfast, lunch, talks to people, but inside he has a total general renovation. Like a guy who says, everything's okay, but in his head there's a construction site with 3 renovation crews arguing about the work schedule. Laughter. And this is because of you, dear. Because of you. You should be proud of yourself. Not everyone manages to mess with someone's head just by existing. That's, I think, a really good skill, and for him it might be, well, terrifying at this moment, but on the other hand, it didn't happen by accident, and it's also quite a positive reaction, right? In the sense that, well, you affect him in some way, and it shows that you turned his life upside down, it seems. but I'm not entirely sure whether he's angry with you or grateful at this moment. We'll see what happens next. And in the meantime, I invite you to arcanemoonshop.com. If you feel the need for a private reading, you have questions for the cards, then of course I invite you. arcanemoonshop.com, that's the website, which you'll also find in the description of this video, so you can scroll down and click on the link. I invite you for private readings. And meanwhile, the Queen of Cups, and I think I already know which direction we're heading in. Which direction are we going? Well. After all this chaos with the tower, suddenly she enters. A lady in full glory, sitting on her throne above the water, holding that cup of hers as if it were the most precious thing she has. And listen, this is a beautiful card in the context of a message from him, because you know what it tells me? That when he thinks of you, he sees exactly such a woman. A queen, not some girl to play with, not a passing acquaintance, not a friend, but a queen. A woman full of power, emotionally mature, one who knows what she wants, who has this incredible depth of feelings in her, but doesn't spill them left and right, but keeps them in her cup, like the most precious wine. And he sees this in you. Even if he never told you, his subconscious registered it. This woman is class itself. And of course, the subconscious was right in this case, because there's a lot to say. I think you can feel it in these cards too. Especially after the tower, you can see it, and it fits quite well with that tower just a moment ago, doesn't it? He had some kind of picture put together, maybe some previous relationships, maybe some expectations, and suddenly everything collapsed. Suddenly everything collapsed because he met someone like you, like this Queen of Cups, authentic, deeply emotional, and it seems you might even be idealizing each other at this moment. This is also a thread worth considering here. I have the impression that, in all of this, what's most visible is that today's message is a communication that's meant to be quite clear. He built something for himself, some kind of narrative about you. He got some idea in his head or made plans. However, this has changed a lot in recent days, and it's not just because, something bad happened or something good, but rather he wanted to take more risks in this relationship with you, like he saw that you have great value, so it's worth going for it. Maybe, he noticed that some colleague from work is hitting on you, so he decided, okay, this is the last chance to do something about this, because I'm not going to let this woman be snatched away by this guy. So perhaps this is exactly that moment, damn it, when he decided to take a risk, that something here fell apart, that he wanted to build this slowly, maybe play a bit of push and pull with you, rejecting and drawing closer. But now he suddenly decided that, no, well, if this Andrzej from work is going to pick her up, I have to do something, because this can't happen. And, well, exactly. So here I see this image, of someone who kind of decided, okay, let's go for it, because something needs to be done about this. And we have the Page of Wands. Page of Wands, which what it primarily shows is precisely this kind of card that after this dignified Queen of Cups suddenly shows a young, enthusiastic little boy with a stick in his hand shouting, hey, I have an idea. Hey, let's do something together. It'll be great. So this is a moment where he realizes that he needs to quickly turn your head somehow, or something like that. He needs to show you something quickly, some, sandcastle he built, and say, listen, here's my sandcastle, does this impress you? Or something like that, which, will be kind of silly, but he figured that, well, no, this is something that might impress you. Maybe he's already done it, or he'll do it now that, I don't know, he's preparing something now. He's preparing some new Spider-Man costume, and then he'll also be able to use webs from his hands and show you and say, I'm the engineer who designed this costume. Does this impress you? So maybe he'll want to pick you up in this enthusiastic, boyish, somewhat childish, let's say, way. Well, I'm curious if this will work, because I have the feeling that for the Queen of Cups this isn't appropriate, that this method doesn't really work. But maybe he actually wants to learn. Maybe he'll only learn and realize that this isn't the way, that such childish action, I'd say, doesn't quite work in the end. So this is such a damn moment of realization that, okay, she's not into comics after all, so maybe I'll try something else. The question is whether it will be too late. The question is whether Andrzej, who may have appeared somewhere on the horizon, won't cause him to have a problem with rivalry over you. That's how I'd see it. Or that's how he sees it, right? Because this is more actually his ideal world in which he notices certain things. So there's as a desire to act in him that appeared recently. I mean, action is more like a desire to pick up, I'd say. He's now quickly searching for pickup lines. How to pick up a woman in 2026, and maybe something will come of it, or maybe not. We'll see. We also have the Ace of Wands. So this card that appears in the 6th position is a card that shows he has a fire burning inside, but this is a fire. This is a fire, not some extraordinary flame. Because of Wands, right? It's not a coincidence that 2 Wands appear here at the end, in the 5th and 6th positions. First, the Page of Wands with such small enthusiasm that ignites with ideas, but you know, he came up with some idea. He says, oh Jen, this is $1 million idea, she has to be mine. That it's some idea that, you know, makes you suddenly come to his home on your own. So here appears some kind of passion to perhaps in a certain way court you, or to put it more bluntly, pick you up laughter in some way, but also besides that, because here I'll start joking around a bit, though what I'm saying is true nonetheless, in the sense of energy, that's how it comes out. However, moving more to the real thing, I have the impression that he actually got fired up about you, ignited some senses, let's say, became even more interested in you. Especially I have the impression of your physicality, I would say, not only, but I think this physicality ignites the most imagination after all. So I don't know if he saw something of yours, maybe a photo on Instagram from vacation or something, I don't know. Well, it's a very physical card, right? So the tarot doesn't lie, and this man may think about you in spiritual and emotional categories, but he also has such a considerable factor in his head, more down to earth, which is simply physical body. And this is the attraction that causes this desire. I think, I don't know, this also kind of in the context of the Fool, and knows that maybe someone just noticed something about you and it made him suddenly light up like a child, like a kid, right? Maybe something more in that direction. Well, it sounds interesting. However, your Queen of Cups, it doesn't quite suit her to have such boyish, childish courtship, in the sense that it doesn't suit her, it just doesn't fit her. No. So I have the feeling that you're sensing this completely. You might not like it, right? Such concerns, but I wouldn't want it to be that way. I would want it to be something better, something more your style. So, well, if there's going to be some conquest, if there's going to be some attempt at who knows what, I hope that, nevertheless, it will be at least nice for you. At least nice, so that he doesn't lose hope now either. You know, because let's say he makes this outfit or something, I don't know, thinks of something interesting, and you tell him, oh Jesus, something like that? What are you doing? We're not 19 years old. And he'll say, aha, so she doesn't like that kind of thing. She rejects it right away. Oh Jesus, such a princess. And now, and he'll say to himself, all right, it's better not to pursue this. So maybe it's better that he doesn't come off so stupid, doesn't turn out so stupid, but instead does something more interesting and in that direction, something that will suit your queen, your inner queen. Also important, the Ace of Swords is also new energy, right? So also for older relationships, let's say, that have already existed for some time, this can mean some pure potential not yet formed. So some kind of new start, a fresher start, I would say. So not a repeat performance, but precisely something new, something fresh, exciting, let's say. Well, so 2 cards were in a row, so expect some such advances, I would say, right? Especially after this Fool who's trying to kind of jump into this abyss, and after this Tower that changes quite a bit. Well, so that's it. I hope it's quite an interesting spread, a bit talked through, but I think I quite well got to the bottom of it somewhere, and said what I wanted to say, so that's the most important thing. Meanwhile, I wish you a beautiful evening, day, and of course all the best. Talk to you later. Hey,